if we've taken that leap to step out on our own, usually it's something that we have an incredible amount of passion towards. It becomes our baby. So it's very easy to start obsessing about the detail. But by doing that, you get lost. You lose the opportunity to progress and to grow and to move forward, because you're spending all the time trying to make something perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. The fastest way to get something that's good or great is just to make it, put it out there, and go and iterate. And that's not only for products, that's also for your work. If you're putting together a marketing strategy, you can sit there for 3 weeks trying to create the perfect marketing strategy. But the problem is there's so many external variables that you're never going to be able to think about when you're sitting there in your cubicle or at your desk at home or in your office that are going to influence it or influence what you put together. The best thing is to put something together that might be bare bones, start getting it out there, and then react and iterate based on the feedback that you're getting in the market.
Hi, and welcome to the Mindset and Performance Podcast. I'm Dris. I help athletes and business professionals with their career development. We work on a wide range of areas from psychology to strategy and execution, but we focus essentially on the mindset as it is the key to everything else. The whole idea behind this podcast is to deconstruct the habits that led people to their success, to learn from their experience and understand the psychology behind their actions and behaviors. And of course, to gain key insights that you can apply to your own life. So how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
I'm good. Busy days because I'm taking a few days off from after tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm trying to pack everything in 3 first days of the week, which I think it's a quite nice thing to do, by the way. For the listeners, it can be a trick. Pack everything in the first 3 days and take 4 days off.
That would be a very good way to live every week.
You're right. Especially for self-employed people.
Yeah, and especially for people that have passions outside of their job.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of passion, what were you doing this morning, you said?
I was surfing at the beach at 7 a.m.
And how was it?
The waves were small and there was a lot of people, but I try to get to the beach every morning, whether it's to walk my dogs or get into the water. It's one of the things that I must do. It really allows me to ground myself. I find the longer that I spend away from the beach, the more neurotic and the more manic I become.
What else do you do besides surfing?
Right now, spend time with my wife. That's another happy place for me. I try to go to the gym 3 or 4 days a week. And by that, it's just going to the gym. My only goal at this point in life is to get on my bike and drive from my house to the gym. If I just go and I have a sauna, or I go and I sit at the coffee shop next to it, at least I've made it to the gym. You know, I spent so long in my life over the last few years where staying healthy wasn't an important part of it. And getting back into it, just making that commitment every day of just getting to the gym, to me is like half the battle.
Yeah.
And most days I get there, I'll spend 20 or 30 minutes on the bike, and then I'll go have a sauna for 20 minutes. Other days, I'll spend 20, 30 minutes on the bike, do a half hour of weights, 20 or 30 minutes of yoga, some time in the sauna, and then go home. But for me, it's just about that repetition and forming that habit of getting there every single day.
So what happened? There was different priorities back then when?
Well, throughout my life, there's always been ebbs and flow to the level of activity that I've had. And honestly, the times that I've always felt the healthiest is when I've had the most activity in my life. And I don't mean that just physically healthy, you know, mentally healthy as well, and just happy. But when I first moved to Indonesia, I found myself surfing a lot, which was great. I was in the water most days, you know, at least once, sometimes twice. Then I moved to Jakarta for just over 2 years. And there it became a little bit more difficult to maintain that activity level. I tried going to some yoga classes, and I found it very difficult to find a community or to find practitioners that were at a level that I was used to training with.
I'm pretty sure it's way different than here in Bali.
Yeah, and even like I grew up in Vancouver, and before I moved here, I was living in Vancouver in Northern California, or staying in Northern California a lot, and those are two yoga meccas. You know, so we have world-class teachers that
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Well, Lululemon's from Vancouver. You know, like there's a lot of really well-known yoga teachers from Vancouver.
Right, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you know, I was very, very spoiled from in that regard. And the classes always had a lot of energy, and the teachers were always very, very creative. And when I got to Jakarta, I found that most of the classes that I went to were just a teacher teaching a sequence that they had learned from their teacher. And it was just very hard for me to connect with the whole process. So I found myself going less and less and less, and you know, working at establishing a business in a foreign market as an expat. My time that I actually had free to do those things became less and less and less. And it kind of gradually just, you know, moved out of my life and stopped being a priority.
So speaking of work, like what are you up to now, and how do you actually introduce yourself to people? What's the label? What's the title?
Well, my title with the company is COO. So, you know, I'm a partner with Philip, who founded the company. And currently I spend the majority of my time overseeing our international development. We're getting ready to launch our product in Europe and North America in early 2020. So I'd say I spend probably about 70% of my time, 80% of my time right now focusing on that. The other 20 to 30% is overseeing and working with our existing business in Indonesia.
Right. And so can you tell us a little more about the products for the listeners that doesn't know about them yet? Yeah.
So the product's called G-Herbal. And most people, or I'm sure most of your listeners will be familiar with Ayurveda from India or traditional Chinese medicine. Our product is the Indonesian / Malay equivalent, which is jamu. It's a traditional form of healing using natural ingredients found within the Indonesian archipelago.
So jamu, for me, I thought the jamu meant the orange, yellowish product.
No, jamu is more of an umbrella term to refer to what is traditional healing in Indonesia. So yes, typically it's tonics, and they generally tend to be very heavily based in tumuluak, which is Javanese ginger or Javanese turmeric, which is part of the turmeric family, but it's not the same as the turmeric you'd find in the grocery store in the West. So most of the formulations and most of what you see are heavily based in that, which is why you get that really kind of dark, bright, orangish, yellowish color to it. However, it does represent a much broader umbrella of natural healing.
So Jamu means healing or natural healing.
I don't know what the actual
Specific,
literal translation would be of the word jamu, but it's what they refer to going out, picking plants, mixing it, creating it into a medicine, and using it to heal.
Right. So you are taking care of a local brand, right?
Correct.
G-Herbal.
Yes. Well, I spend most of my time with G-Herbal Singapore, which is G-Herbal Global. But the brand was originally launched in Indonesia.
Okay, so can you tell us more about this product? Sorry, I interrupted before when I asked about Jamu.
Yes. So what we do, the founder, Philip, got into this business very, very differently than most people that get into the supplement business or the health and wellness business. For him, it wasn't that he saw an opportunity in the market and he was like, I'm going to make a product and go after it. And he wasn't someone that was on this health journey himself, who ended up becoming ultra healthy and made the decision, I want to work in this industry. What type of product can I create? It came about very naturally where about, I think it was 11 years ago, 12 years ago now, a friend of his, every month when it would be that time of the month for her menstrual cycle, she'd deal with a lot of menstrual related pains and kind of mood swings and things of that nature. PMS, exactly. And every month she would go to this little warung down this little gong, so this little shop down this little alley in this remote part of Jakarta, and walk in, and this old man would mix these herbs for her and give them to her. And if she got those herbs that month, she'd be fine. She'd have no pain. She'd spend no time in bed. She'd just glide right through it. Months when she was unable to get that mixture of herbs, she'd spend 2 or 3 days in bed. And Philip was kind of blown away that, here in Indonesia, they're using herbs, like as he refers to it, Indonesian salad, to treat a condition that back in Europe, in Switzerland, where he's from, doctors are prescribing anti-baby pills, antidepressants, hardcore pharmaceuticals to deal with these symptoms.
That have necessarily a lot of bad effects, negative effects, side effects.
Exactly. Yeah. So that led him on the mission to try to find a way to get this product to the European market. And that was just over 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. 10 years ago. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So it was a very, very, very long time in development. He spent the first year going to different remote parts of Indonesia and meeting these jamu masters and seeing if he could get a formula off of them that he could then repackage and bring to the European market. That didn't work out for him. No one was really willing to share their recipes. They tend to hold them pretty close to their hearts. Every jamu master is known for their own specific things, so it's kind of like sharing trade secrets. That led him to a place that's called IPB Bogor, IPB, which is the largest agricultural university in Southeast Asia. And there he eventually began working with the faculty. It took him about a year of going up there on a regular basis and just talking to people before they took him seriously and started actually, having real conversations about jamu with him and about the specifics of different Indonesian herbs. And then from that point, it was, a very long road to the point where our products actually became registered for sale. Philip went through multiple years of different formulations and different trials to get the product to where it is now. From the get-go, he never wanted to be someone that was just pushing capsules. If he didn't create a product that, the majority of the people actually felt a positive benefit from it, he had no interest in doing it. And that's what led us to where we are today with a line of 5 different products. We have a product for the immune system, which is G-Herbal Body, which is kind of a total body booster. We have a product for your skin, another product for your weight. But then we have a product for kind of overall mental wellness. I don't want to say mental wellness is probably the wrong word.
Sharpness, focus, well-being.
Focus, well-being.
That's the bliss. That's
yeah,
the bliss, right?
Yeah, bliss.
One of my favorites too.
Yeah. A lot of people really like that product. And then finally, we have our product Woman, which was the product that started it all.
Yeah, the beginning of it.
And funny enough, it was the last product to actually hit market and get final approval.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it took the longest to develop that product.
Right. Like I had somebody asking me actually about it this morning, about the women. He going to be in touch with you for the product.
Yeah.
Is there any other products in Indonesia? I mean, when I go to supplement stores, I never see any Indonesian products in the stores. Like I see American imported, maybe Singaporean, but I never saw like really...
There are some.
Yeah?
I'd say that they're more recent launches. They're a little bit harder to come by in Bali than they are in Jakarta or in Java. I think Bali has a lot more kind of boutique type brands. Like if you go to Coffee and Oven or if you go to Bali Buddha, you can buy little pouches with mixtures of herbs from Indonesia and things of that nature. But nothing, there's a few brands out of Jakarta that are doing it on a larger level, like we are. But no one's exporting it at scale.
Right.
Which is one of the things that's different for us.
What other differences are there for like the difference between your product and other products? Why would you say your products are better or more efficient or effective? Or
well, it's a couple of key reasons. Most people that start a supplement brand, the easy path to market and the path to market that most people take is they go to a producer that produces supplements and they say, I want a supplement for weight, I want a supplement for skin, I want a supplement for this. And the producer goes, they look through their book and they go, boom, 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 boom. Okay, that one, here you are. And that's it. Most of the extracts that are used in those scenarios are purchased through wholesalers. So you really have no control over the final quality of the product. The path we took that Philip took is a lot longer and a lot more difficult. So we know the farms where all of our raw ingredients come from. They arrive at our producer. Our producer checks the raw ingredients to make sure that the batch overall has a certain minimum level of active compounds. Once it passes those, then it goes to the scientific portion where we're making sure that we're using the most optimal extraction method for each of the individual herbs. So for us, it's control of the process from start to finish. So we know exactly what's going into each capsule. We can make the claim that it's farm to capsule. All of our ingredients are traceable to source. That's the big difference. Whereas normally when you buy from a wholesaler, you get a powder, you don't know how much filler's in there, et cetera, et cetera. You put it into a capsule and you hope for the best.
All right. So who's taking these products now? Who do you see more attracted to these products? Are we talking here about regular people, about athletes, about business professionals, a little bit of a blend of everyone?
It's a blend of everyone.
Yeah.
When we first came to Bali from Jakarta and started tapping into the market in Bali, it was pardon me. When we first started tapping into the market in Bali, it was adopted initially by a lot of athletes. Whereas in Europe, the markets we've been testing with over the years, and even in Jakarta, it's a lot of professionals. Our product is it's not a performance product from an athletic standpoint. It's about helping people simplify their well-being. Out of our product line, if there's one product you could take that's going to help you the most, it's body. Body does so much for so many things, and just taking that daily, it's going to help elevate your overall health and well-being. So we have a lot of people that are senior citizens. We have a lot of professionals. We have people dealing with arthritis. We have, just this vast this very broad spectrum of clients. And that was the goal. The goal wasn't to make something that was targeted specifically towards athletes. It was about creating a product that could help people live healthier every day that was very easy to take.
What kind of expectations one needs to have from the products? I guess like it's different from one product to another. From like 2 weeks, see the difference after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month.
Yeah. So for 3 of our products, most people notice a difference right away. Body, Bliss, and Woman. For those 3 products, most women, their first menstrual cycle, if they know when it's coming, if they start taking the product according to the directions, then they have a far more comfortable experience during that first month. For Bliss and Body, for those 2 products, most people will notice an impact, the first or second time they take the product. Skin and weight, generally, 2 to 3 weeks is what, we normally suggest, especially for skin. If you're dealing with something like acne, it'll take a little bit longer. And generally your acne the first week will actually get worse before it actually gets better over the second, third, and fourth week, because it's your body detoxifying. So yeah, it depends on the product. And with all herbal supplements, and even with all pharmaceuticals and medication, not every herbal supplement and not every medication works with every person. So for us right now, we're very fortunate that we're hitting a very, very high success rate in terms of people that actually feel the effectiveness of our product. But for some people, they don't, and that's just how the industry is.
I had my acupuncturist complimenting me for my skin. He was like, "What are you eating? What do you do?" Like at first he started like, "How old are you?"
Yeah,
because he was surprised to see that actually my skin is still
has the elasticity.
Yeah, and also the shiny. Yeah. So he was surprised. I was like, okay, this is working.
Yeah, no, we get from people that start taking the skin product. It's funny, the thing that we hear often from them, especially from women after they've started taking the product, is people will come up to them and be like, "What are you doing? You're glowing." And for us, that's the reason why we keep on doing it. It's for those stories. Like, over the 10 years that Philip's been doing this and testing products on people, and the 3 years I've been involved in the company, like the stories we hear about how thankful people are for us creating these products, for the transformation that they've had in their life because of them. It keeps us going every day.
I guess it's very gratifying. It makes you feel good to hear that.
It does.
Yeah. How did you get in touch with the company in the first place? Did you maybe start taking the supplements and then you got interested in them, or?
No, I got involved in a roundabout way. I had started a digital agency in Jakarta shortly before I got married, and through a mutual contact, I was introduced to Philip because he was looking for someone to develop the e-commerce portion of his existing website at that time. I think it was the first meeting or the second meeting, Philip gave me samples of his supplements. Now, growing up in, like I said, the West Coast, I'd been taking supplements since I was 12 or 13 years old, whether it was Indonesia or fish oil or omega-3 or aloe vera oil or, just all the different health trends. At some point they came, through my door, and I tried them at some point. And I'd never had an experience with a supplement where I was able to be like, that's the reason why I'm feeling this way. About 6 months after I moved to Jakarta, I found myself in the hospital I was at the hospital, not for 2 or 3 days, but each day I went to the hospital and had more tests done and stuff like this. I felt very, very sick, really high fever, vomiting, aching all over. Doctors gave me antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, medicated throat lozenges, a host of pharmaceuticals. Took them, got better. 3 weeks or a month later, I was back in the hospital. This went on for a period of 5 or 6 months where...
Wow, really? That long?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas every 4 or 5 weeks, I'd be back in the hospital. And thankfully in Jakarta, they actually have an ear, nose, and throat specific hospital. And so we started going there, and I actually ended up having, I don't know what the actual translation, I should know this in English, but endoscopy. So
yeah, I know one.
Yeah, where they stick the camera down your throat. And that doctor actually just looked at me and said, "How long have you been in Jakarta?" And I said, "Well, at this point, almost a year." And he said, "Well, you're still new." And that was the only answer he could give me for what was happening.
What does it mean, still new?
Well, what would happen is the pollution, which is quite, heavy in Jakarta, would irritate my throat. And then as soon as my throat was irritated, it would get raw. And then the kind of foreign tropical bacteria that my body growing up, in kind of a cold rainforest environment, didn't have the natural antibodies to fight, would just grow into an infection. And that infection would get really, really bad. And so it was probably about a year after being in Jakarta and after 5 or 6 visits to the hospital that I met Philip. And in that meeting, he just gave me his supplements to try because I was going to start working with him on, doing some digital work, some development work for him. And I started taking Body every morning and every night. And then didn't really realize anything and made no correlation at all. But I think it was 3.5 months later or 4 months later, I was back in the hospital with the same thing that had been sending me back to the hospital all this time. And got home from the hospital with my goodie bag of pharmaceuticals from the doctors. And my wife and I sat there and we were like, okay, what happened? What changed? Like, I went through this period of 4 months where this was not an issue. And so we checked like the service date on our air conditioners and, all of these things that might have been environmental to change it. And then we came to the realization that it was about 2 weeks before that I'd run out of the Body supplement.
Right, you stopped using them.
Yeah, I ran out of it and I'd never made any correlation, so I didn't ask for more. So that afternoon, I sent Philip a message. I explained what happened. He sent me up more Body right away. Lived another, I think, 14 months in Jakarta after that without going to the hospital once.
Excellent.
Yeah. So for me, it was, I came to the company, as a converted user, for me, I can't think about living in this environment over here without these products.
Right, I see. So you started working for them, with them, I would say, thinking, your job was to be doing digital marketing for them, but then it became much more than that. It became a sort of a mission, I believe, and purposeful mission.
Very, very, very much so.
Yeah.
It was a little over a year ago that I came on board full time with the company. And it was something that needed to happen for the business, whether it was me or someone else. With what Philip was trying to do and what he was trying to create, he really needed someone around him that had a lot of diverse interests and knowledge in a lot of different areas that could really work with him on a daily basis to kind of create the strategy and drive the business forward.
Do you feel today that you are aligned with your purpose and what you're supposed to be doing?
100%, without a doubt. It's funny, I was actually on a phone call yesterday with my best friend. We've been best friends since 32 years now. And he was saying, I wish you lived closer, because he's still back in Vancouver and he's very successful himself. And I said, this is the happiest I've ever been in my life. To me, if I had to define success, I'm successful. I'm as successful as I could ever want to be. Would I like to potentially have more financial security down the road? Definitely, but that's not, what I would define success as. I wake up every morning smiling and happy for the day ahead of me. Now, when I was living, kind of in the proverbial 9-to-5 rat race, living in Vancouver or Toronto or in those markets, I can't say that I woke up happy every day.
Tell us a little bit about that. Like where was your beginnings? Like you grew up in Vancouver?
I grew up in Vancouver.
Who were you as a kid?
I have a problem. I was
Trouble?
I was a troublemaker. I got into a lot of trouble. Yeah.
Who did you look up to back then? Like, were you?
Well, for the majority of my life, I guess probably from the time I was 11 or 12, it would have been pro snowboarders. That was the biggest part of my life was skateboarding and snowboarding.
I just had one snowboarder from Canada in the show.
Okay.
Annie Boulanger.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with her.
Yeah, she was here like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah. No, she reached a higher level of competition than I did.
So you were snowboarding.
Yeah.
You looked up to these guys and you wanted to be a snowboarder.
Yeah,
and you became a snowboarder.
I taught snowboarding for 7 years. I competed for almost 3 years. Myself and my friend Jay that I was mentioning before, we were the first 2 fully certified freestyle coaches in Canada.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, she must know you too.
So I lived in Whistler for 2.5 years. Went to Australia to compete. So, it was a big part of my life until my early 20s.
So a troublemaker to a snowboard expert.
Yes.
And okay.
Well, for me, that was, snowboarding and skateboarding are the 2 things that kept me out of trouble. And, for me, unlike a lot of people at that time, because I got involved in snowboarding and skateboarding when just before the transition of like outcast to mainstream. I started snowboarding in the late 80s, so then, most ski hills still didn't allow it. So I watched that full transition from it going where it was a bunch of kind of misfits to, it was people that took athletics very, very, very seriously.
And so what did you want to be back then? Like, was it clear for you that you want to be a pro snowboarder, or was there any other options that you were exploring?
I always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my whole life I started writing business plans when I was probably 15 years old on a bunch of sheet of papers. I'd be doing spreadsheets.
Who influenced you for that?
I think it was my dad's business partner's husband.
Oh.
He was a very, very, very interesting man. And every month he'd always buy this magazine called The Rob Report. I don't know if you're familiar with The Rob Report. It's a North American magazine all about luxury living. Because he liked gadgets and neat new things and nice cars and things like this. And The Rob Report's the magazine that, like, in the back it has a classified section. But it's not like a classified section in a newspaper. It's like a classified section to buy like the $20 million penthouse in New York or the $30 million yacht or the bulletproof G-Wagon. And so I grew up being kind of really influenced by kind of all of these luxury things. And I'm like, okay, well, the only way I'm ever going to achieve this is, the only way I'm ever going to achieve this is being an entrepreneur. So
okay, so then you stopped snowboarding and you started looking for that.
Yeah, so after I stopped snowboarding, it would have been 98. So just before the first tech bubble burst. And I had put together a concept for a business, an online business. And I'd gone out and started pitching investors in Vancouver. And eventually one of the people I'd been pitching said to me, I'm not going to give you money for your business, but I want you to come work with me, come work for me. And I was 23 years old, and my first title was Business Development and Marketing Director, and they were a publicly traded company on the Vancouver Stock Exchange. And I was like, okay, well, I'm 23 years old. This is pretty good. So I took that opportunity, and I learned a lot, working there and going through the burst of the first bubble in 99, 2000.
Was he a mentor in the same time, this guy?
He was a mentor at the same time. I'd say more so than him. The CFO that we had, Roxanne Ayat, she was a huge mentor for me.
There are things that you can think of that she was saying that you still use right now.
Not that she said.
Not necessarily in the technical aspect,
Yeah,
but like just
not
in.
what she said. It was just more. She led by example, not by words, and the work ethic she had, and the scrutiny that she had over numbers. Her and I were tasked with rewriting the business plan and redoing the financials for the company, and so we worked together over a 2 or 3 month period to completely revamp everything for the company.
Teaming up together, right?
Yeah. And so through that experience, I learned so much. Plus, she was someone that was into running marathons and doing triathlons. So I started doing marathon training with her, and her and her boyfriend would go, and we'd go on 4-hour mountain bike rides up the North Shore Mountains. And
how did you know that you were doing a good job? Are you the kind of person that expect like an external feedback, or do you have an internal system telling you it did go good? And
I have an internal system. But I appreciate the external feedback. I'm not someone that craves or requires the external feedback, but the external feedback is always appreciative and, puts a smile on your face. It's not something that I need on a regular basis, but, even if I get it once every 6 months or once a year, that's enough for me, the external feedback.
It's good to have a healthy balance a little bit between the two. It doesn't mean like it need to be 50-50, but why I'm asking the question is because probably there is some of the listeners here who wants to start their own business or get on board with a company like yours and follow their passion and have a good mission for people. But when we are too much used to have an external feedback only, and that's the only one that we believe in, we tend to drift away a little bit from commitment and sticking to what we are supposed to do, because we wait for somebody to tell us a good job. While in the beginning, you are a solo commando in a mission by yourself doing things, and you need to have that internal feedback telling you did a good job, keep going, until you team up with somebody or get on board with someone.
Doing any startup, whether it's your own or working for another startup, you really need to have that internal mechanism. I don't think it's something that most people are born with. I think it's something that you have to develop, and it takes time, and it's challenging.
And we are so much used to that external feedback. Like you get
it from school, from childhood.
From parents, from childhood. Like you wait for the parents to tell you, good job. Yeah. Okay, now here's a candy or here's a toy. Teachers. Yeah. And we grow into that. But you need to develop it at some
and even
point.
in our first jobs, when we were working, most of us, I think, growing up where I did, most people's first job was in the service industry. It was either working in a restaurant or retail or something like that when they were in high school to make extra money. And it's the same thing. You do a good job, you get a bigger tip.
You're right.
Things like that. So, I think it's bred into us by society for sure. And you do need to step away from that in positions of, in a startup. Not only do you have to be a self-starter, but you also have to know when, a task is complete, when a task is complete, and when to move on to the next. Otherwise, you can get so caught up on the minute details that 3 weeks pass you by and you're doing the same thing where you could have probably put it to rest a couple of weeks before.
Yeah. And you're pretty autonomous right now. I mean, you work with Philip, I guess. You have also a few people working with and everything, but you don't need that external pressure to get the job done and everything. Like you're doing what you need to be doing, right?
Yeah, for us right now, we're a distributed workforce. It's still a small team, but I'm based in Bali. I have one other person with me here in Bali. Philip's based in Jakarta. We have someone in Singapore. But for myself, I've always had to do it. I've had very few positions over my 27 years of working where I've worked for someone else. I've pretty much my whole life worked for myself.
Did you had to learn it, or did you find it easy for you to do that?
No, I had to learn it, which was a challenge. I used to spend a lot longer than I needed to in the office, because I was very ineffective at completing tasks. So, when I had my first business I'd spend 14, 16 hours a day in the office. And I thought I was being efficient and getting a lot of stuff done. But looking back on it now with hindsight, I didn't have that mechanism that we were just speaking about where, I was able to close something off and move on to the next. I would obsess over it, waiting until someone said that was good enough, or you're done that, move on to the next. But
I guess also your own internal dialogue would be kind of negative. Not, this is not enough, I have to keep on going.
Exactly. I think all of us in, the work we do, especially, if we've taken that leap to step out on our own, usually it's something that we have an incredible amount of passion towards. It becomes our baby. So it's very easy to start obsessing about the detail. But by doing that, you get lost. You lose the opportunity to progress and to grow and to move forward, because you're spending all the time trying to make something perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. The fastest way to get something that's good or great is just to make it, put it out there, and go and iterate. And that's not only for products, that's also for your work. If you're putting together a marketing strategy, you can sit there for 3 weeks trying to create the perfect marketing strategy. But the problem is there's so many external variables that you're never going to be able to think about when you're sitting there in your cubicle or at your desk at home or in your office that are going to influence it or influence what you put together. The best thing is to put something together that might be bare bones, start getting it out there, and then react and iterate based on the feedback that you're getting in the market.
Correct. That's the good advice. Okay, so you started that new job when you were 23. So what happened after that?
The tech bubble burst.
Yeah.
So our funding dried up. Our share value went from significant to nothing. So that was a challenge. After that, it was survival, which is a place I've found myself in a number of times in my life.
As an organization, we said the survival, or as it for you?
No, as an individual.
The
company closed down in May of 2001 or 2002. I forget the exact year. Had to lay everyone off. I was one of the last 2 employees still with the company. But eventually the company just sold off its business units or whatever had value and shut the doors.
So it was a challenging period, you're saying?
It was a challenging period.
How did you navigate through that? What was going on actually? The challenging period, was it external stressors? Everyone is freaking out. People are losing their jobs and you are thinking, I'm going to lose mine too.
I knew I was losing mine.
Oh, you knew that.
I knew I was losing mine. I knew that I just had longer than most people, but I knew that mine was ending. There's a lot of stress. It was right around that time that I found out that my wife at the time was pregnant. So, I was going to have a child on the way, and it was a turbulent period. And
okay, so you got out of it, and then you started something different then? Or was
I moved on. I through contacts that I had made, the business that we were in was in the financial industry, and in Canada had done all of my I'd completed all the regulatory requirements to trade stock. So I ended up going and working for a company trading stock for a year. And
very different than the first job.
Very different than the first job, and it did not make me happy at all.
Did you transfer any skills from the first one to the second one? Because usually there's some underlying same things.
Because the first one, we were actually creating software for traders.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So there was, a common thread between the two. And because of that, I went and I had done all of my courses and my requirements to get licensed as a trader when I was with the first company. Just have a better understanding and more insights as to what traders would need. So, there was definitely a common thread that led me there, and I thought that it was something that I'd have interest in. But in reality, it was like playing a really boring video game. You're staring at a couple of screens for 8 hours a day and just looking for, 3 or 4 cent shifts in a stock price.
Was it boring because it was too easy or because it wasn't fulfilling?
Because it wasn't fulfilling. That was, you're in an office with 30 or 40 other people and no one really talks. So there was no community. And, to me, I didn't realize it back then how important community was to me, but I think that had played a large part in me not being happy there.
And this is the second time today, or third time, that you mentioned the word community. I think it's one of your core values to have community.
Definitely, and it took me 37 years to figure that one out.
It's never too late.
No, not at all. Like I said, the last 5-6 years have been the best years of my life.
Right. So keep going on that timeline. What is the chapter that came after that one?
After that one, there was a brief hiatus where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Played around with a couple of different ideas for businesses.
Let me guess, early 30s, late 20s?
No, I was still early 20s at the time.
Oh, you said 23. Oh, yeah.
23.
But he finished the job 25.
So 25, 26. So I would have been 26. So 26 till 27 was, a real floater year. Not, just taking odd jobs and odd contracts and doing what I needed to make money to survive.
It happened quite early to you, I guess, because most of the people I work with, they come to me between 27 and 32.
Okay.
And doing that transition, like trying to figure out things.
I had another one at 35.
All right. So that's when we came to Indonesia.
That's what that's what led me to Indonesia for my first time.
Okay.
So, but no, then after that, after the floater period, I forget what I was doing for a job, but I had a friend that was working in insurance in Vancouver, and we had been talking about starting a magazine. And I remember calling him up at midnight one night, and I was like, I hate my job. Let's do it. Let's start a magazine. He was like, okay. He walked into his insurance company the next day and quit.
Him too? Yeah. Is it the same friend that you mentioned?
No, this is a different friend. So him and I started our first magazine. That would have been 2004 we launched it. So I would have been 26 when we started that process.
Nice. Okay, and then?
Ran that magazine for 3 years. Moved me to Toronto from Vancouver. Then after that, I left that magazine and did an online magazine for another 3.5 years. They're all kind of in the design, fashion, lifestyle arena. And and that's when the wheels really came off the track, so to speak.
So how do you think you operate when it comes to making decisions? Like, it seems like you have changed a lot jobs every 2 years, every year, kind of something like that. Like, does it come from like an excitement point? Like, okay, this can be very exciting, let's do it. Or does it come from, I hate what I'm doing right now and I can't stand it anymore, so I need to do something different?
No, it's usually from an excitement.
Well,
those are almost the same questions, because it's generally it would come because what I was doing became boring and something else seemed more exciting at the time.
But which one comes first?
Usually the boring.
The boring one comes first.
Usually the boring comes first.
There is, I believe there's, I mean, they're both of them valid, of course, but like, I believe there's people who are away motivated. So they don't want to have that life anymore. They don't want to have that relationship anymore. They don't want to have that pain or challenge anymore. And therefore, that's what makes them move forward, go to something different, try to find something different or find it. And there is people who are forward motivated. They start from actually the excitement and the idea and the feelings that new venture, that new job, that new relationship can give them.
Well, I agree with that, and from that standpoint, I'd have to say that I'm forward motivated because of for the most part, been an adrenaline junkie my whole life. And, and that's the excitement, is that, you get that dopamine uptick, things are firing in your head and you're like, okay, this is really cool. I want to do this.
So that's what happened also what brought you to Bali, I believe, right? Like a few years after that.
To some degree. For me, Toronto, I'd lost myself in Toronto, working in the industry that I was in there. You're out 5-6 nights a week at different events and different parties. And, it was a very unhealthy lifestyle for me. And I'd come to a place where I was very, very, very unhappy with life. And I didn't know what to do. And around the same time, about a year and a half before, my sister had been diagnosed with cancer. And so I made the decision to move back to Vancouver to be around my sister and her family. I'd never gotten to know her husband really before that point, and I had a nephew that I didn't know. And that was really the first point in my life that I put a priority on being in service to others over being in service to myself. And that changed my life.
Yeah, that was a major shift, I believe, right?
It was. There was a few things that happened. My friend that we spoke about earlier, for 7 years, he had been trying to get me to go and take a personal development course. And I kept on having excuses. I was like, no.
Not for me.
It's a cult. I don't want to do it. And it was about 6 months after I'd moved back to Vancouver. We were out having a beer one night, and, I was still, even though I'd moved there and I was being in service to my sister's family and, contributing and being helpful, I still wasn't fulfilled and I still wasn't happy. And I felt very trapped and very isolated at the same time. Even though I had these people that I loved around me, I had no idea who I was and where I wanted to go and why I existed. And so he brought it up again that night. He's like, do you have any excuses for not going now? And I was like, no, I don't. And so he called and he booked me in and put it on his credit card.
Good friend.
Yeah, he is. He's, been the most solid person and one of the most solid people in my life for 30 plus years. And in many ways, taking that course changed a lot of my life. It really provided a paradigm shift in how I viewed things and how I approached the world.
And do you feel like you are now still at service with what you do these days?
I definitely do. Not as much as I did before, but I make it more of a priority. I think overall, the place I approach life from is a very, very, very different place. You could have said for the first 35 years of my life, I had a chip on my shoulder and I felt that the world owed me things and I was entitled and maybe a little arrogant. But that experience of 35, 36, 37, up until the time that my sister passed away, it really changed who I was. And to a lot of my close friends, like I tell them, like, I really only grew up when I was 36 years old. I was still a child before that. And even my wife now, like I tell her, like, if you had met me 10 years ago, this relationship would not have happened. Like, you would not have liked who I was. I didn't like who I was.
Okay. What are you guys up to now with G-Herbal?
For the most part, it's getting ready for the international launch, which will be taking place in early 2020, late January, early February.
What's the difference between the products you have right now and the international ones?
Primary difference is the international ones, although the herbal extracts still come from Indonesia, they are produced in Singapore. All of the capsules are also veggie caps. They're also vegan friendly and allergen free.
Exclusive design also on the packaging.
Exclusive design on the packaging, a complete rebrand.
Yeah.
And for us, we really, with the international product, we really took a lot, a deep dive into what's the main problem with how supplements are currently packaged. And one of them is they're packaged for the convenience of the manufacturer, not the convenience of the consumer. And the thing with a supplement is in order for a supplement to work, you have to take it regularly. If you stop taking it regularly, you don't get the benefits for it. So when you get a big bag or a big container of supplements, it goes into your cupboard in the kitchen, or it goes into, the vanity in the bathroom, and if you forget to take them in the morning, you're not taking them that day. And so we wanted to create packaging that promoted convenience, so people could leave one at home, have one in their bag, have one at the office, or one in the car. How do we do that in a way that promotes people to take it with them? So when they remember, they have it on them. So it's like, their little herbal friend, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And when are they going to be launched, the international ship?
By the time this podcast goes live, they will be available
early
internationally.
2020.
Yeah, and the best part about that is we'll be, depending on where you are in the world, Europe, the US, it'll be $5 or €5 shipping, 5 days.
Excellent. A couple of more questions. If you can finish these sentences. Life is all about?
Love.
That came quick. Hey. Happiness come from?
Community.
That came quick too. Pressure comes from?
Yourself.
Definitely. Do you have any specific rituals to get rid of that pressure, or like to cope with it differently, manage it differently?
Yeah. Spend time with nature or an activity. To me, that's, really the only way to do it. A walk on the beach, a morning surf, going to the gym. When I was back in Canada, I'd go running in the mountains. For me, it's that interaction with nature, grounding, source, whatever you want to call it, that allows me to move beyond those moments of pressure.
Do you read?
I do.
What do you like reading?
Well, mostly things online, magazines. I'm a magazine junkie. I read far more magazine articles than I do books. Mostly right now, I read a lot of HBR, so Harvard Business Review.
Right.
But I'm a magazine junkie.
Excellent. Is there anything else would you like to add to this conversation before we wrap it up?
The scariest steps in life are usually the best ones to take.
Excellent one. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being here.
Always happy to.
All right. I will put links to all your products, your website, your personal Instagram, if you have one, and connect you with everyone. There is a lot to learn from you, your experience, your time. Yes. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dris.
That's it for today's conversation. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the key insights that we shared on this podcast interview. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you didn't subscribe yet, and head to my website, thebodyandmindcoach.com/blog, to find exclusive articles about various personal and professional development topics. And finally, if you are an athlete or a business professional who's looking for help to advance your career and navigate through whatever challenges that you may be facing to win your game, or if you are a corporate organization who would like to offer their team a workplace well-being workshop, or if you are a sports team who's looking at unlocking their full potential, go to my website, thebodyandmindcoach.com, scroll to the bottom and hit the contact button and reach out. Thank you and enjoy your day.